Hello there, everyone. Welcome to our Flexijet monthly training webinar. We'll call these approximately monthly, and we're here in just a little over a month, I think, since we did one of these last. And thank you, everyone who takes the time out of their days to join us for these. Today, we're going to cover a topic, popular request. A number of people have asked for more information about measuring floor plans. And our goal with this webinar is to kind of give an introduction to measuring floor plans. So this is going to be an overview and give you some ideas of how you can apply this in your own measuring situation. Just started a new project, auto-leveled, did align to object, and specifically when we did align to object, we used the second option here, which is simple placement. We measured 2 points on the walls, and we measured a third point, which set the origin in the drawing. For those of you in the architecture or measuring for an architect and engineer, there may be a datum point or a true zero that they want referenced in this entire drawing. That's what that third point does. We're setting the level of zero and also the position is zero. So we're setting a true datum in the drawing. May be necessary, may not be necessary for what you do, but regardless, you have the choice on that there. Key for things like room measurements, folder organization. You know, this matters a lot for what we're doing with countertops, millwork, glass, any of these things, it matters a lot. I'm not going to say it matters more for room measurements, but it matters just as much. It's something to consider as well. So let's say we're coming here, we're measuring this single room. I'm going to create myself a project folder, call this home. We'll create ourselves a 3D folder. We'll call this room 1, let's say. We're going to call this room 1. And we are now ready to start measuring. Right at the top here in the measurement ribbon, you'll see this button called Measure Floor Plan. You also notice that Room from Layout, which we'll come back to later, this is kind of our second of the 2 functions we're going to look at today, is currently grayed out. So Measure Floor Plan is a function that happens in a 3D folder. Room from Layout happens in a 2D folder, and they're very closely related, but just it'll kind of lead you to the right direction. Also conveniently, you can think of it this way. Measure floor plan, it's right in the name. It's a measurement command. So we use that command to measure. Room from layout, it means we're creating a room from a layout. It's an editing command. And because of that, measure floor plan, which is visible there, is also visible on the screen of the Flexijet here, whereas room from layout is not. That's an editing command. So I'm going to choose the measure floor plan command here. Again, same as pressing that button on the screen of the Flexijet. Let's walk through these steps together. Some of you will have done this before, but for those of you that are being introduced to this for the first time, we'll show you what this looks like. So first thing, it says measure a point on the floor. I will go ahead and just aim this right in front of the Flexijet. Basically, we're setting the level of the floor. If you're used to measuring countertops, you set your plane on the countertops. We're setting the plane of the floor basically here. Single point to do that. It now prompts us to measure on wall 1, a first point on the wall towards the left. So we're going to start on this side here. Now I'm pointing at this wall behind me just because it happens to be convenient. Generally speaking, for the integrity of your measurement, no different which wall we start on. So we're going to arbitrarily choose one. And normally for the accuracy of our measurements, it's no different what order or direction we measure. But just like when we're setting vertical planes, the direction does matter here. We're measuring a point on the wall towards the left. And I'm now going to move and measure a point on the same wall, but towards the right. This part is going to be outside a camera frame, but I'm now moving on to wall 2. So we started there. We're working clockwise around the room, following the prompts here. Wall 2, first point. Wall 2, second point. Wall 3, first point. Wall 3, second point. Wall 4, first point. Wall 4, second point. Great. How do I let it know I'm done? Well, there are some cases where you can actually just continue measuring. The Flexijet will recognize that it's back on the first wall and it will move it up to the top. A great function. We'll show you what that looks like a little bit later, but we're not going to rely on that right now. We're gonna use the functions in here to tell it that we're done this, because that's going to build us in another direction here with another application of this function. So just like when you're measuring, really anything 2D geometry wise, if you look at it right now, we're actually in a 2D folder that's been created as part of this 3D function. And we've got 2 choices here at the top. We got connect endpoints, an open element, or closed elements. Likewise, we can also do this on in the command window here. We could choose F5 or F6 to either do an open room or a closed room. And you won't see it there through the camera, but those same buttons, just like we do when we're auto-filleting, if we're measuring some 2D geometry, we have those buttons available here. I'm going to press the button furthest to the right there, which is the closed room, and you'll notice it connects those corners together. So I told it, hey, this is a complete room. Not part of a room, this is a complete room. And now it's prompting me for a point on the ceiling. So those same prompts we're seeing down here in the command window on the bottom of the screen are, of course, the same ones that we're seeing on the screen of the Flexijet. And we've now measured that point on the ceiling. What does it do here really quickly? Creates all our different folders. So very straightforward function. Room with 4 walls, we need a total of 10 points. Point on the floor, 2 points on each wall, a point on the ceiling. What does the function do for us? It creates a 2D folder for each one of these walls, intersects the plane, and builds us this box. All kinds of things we can do from here. So, very base level, we built a very basic box on here. All kinds of things we can do from here, and we'll explore some of those as we go through these examples together. But at its most basic, this is what the floor plan looks like. Each one of these folders, there's our 2D layout, which is pretty well a duplicate of the floor, just a little bit different. Our different applications sometimes. We've got our ceiling folder here, wall 1, not a whole lot on it so far, 2, wall 3, wall 4. Every single one of these folders has the exact same height. The height is determined by the point we measured on the floor and the point we measured on the ceiling. So these walls are not scribed. Don't cut these and expect to fit a piece of marble or millwork exactly on these walls. These are an accurate representation of the wireframe of this room. Of course, if we want more detail, we need to add more detail onto this. Now, I want to flip over, and we'll do a couple things on this, but right from the start here, I want to show you just a couple of variations of this. So first thing here, we're going to go back to the 3D folder, and I'm going to click here to our top view. We're now looking at this straight from the top, and you might be looking at this, and for those of you with a keen eye, which is probably most of you if you're Flexijet users, you can see that, hey, these walls aren't perfectly square. Not a big surprise. It's not a perfectly built room that we're in here. We're going to come to that, and maybe we'll save that for a second longer, but just wanted to show you that it's built these around, what we've put on the page here. So that's kind of our first version of this. Let's do another folder here, and we're going to do this room 1 V2. We're going to create a separate 3D folder for this. I want to show you about this. Let's say, okay, you're watching this webinar. It's Introduction to Room Measurements and Floor Plans. You care about this because you do millwork, and you want to be able to maybe use this function to accurately or to quickly bulk out kind of a section of a room. But you might not care about the whole room. Great example of this is an open plan house. The kitchen's in kind of a corner of a big room. It might have its own kind of area, but if we're measuring for millwork, or if we're focused on that kitchen, we probably don't care about that room in its entirety. So we're going to use the same function, slightly changed. And I'll give you just a view of this. So we're going to leave that other one intact here. We'll just minimize that. That's our room 1. We created a room 1 V2 3D folder. Remember, this is a measurement function. It happens in 3D folders. We've got the button available. Let's press it right here to prompt us right away for a point on the floor. We always start with a point on the floor. We got to define where that is. I only care. We're replacing these cabinets only. I really don't care about anything that's happening, outside of the camera frame over there. All we care about is what's behind us here. Let's focus on that, and let's take just those measurements. So follow along here. This will be just outside of camera frame, but instead of taking the whole room, I'm just going to go past where I need on this wall, take 0.1 and then 0.2 here. Again, just on the wall. It doesn't have to be perfectly in the corner. It's going to intersect these. I'm now on wall 2, first point on the wall and second point on the wall. That's all we need. This kitchen exists on just these 2 walls. We've got this wall here, this wall here. We don't need to keep going and get wall 3 and wall 4 and complete this room. So that's all we're going to take. Now, again, I can press these buttons on the screen of the Flexijet here, or we can come over to the software. And here's the interesting part. Remember, a second ago, we had the option to create a closed room. That option is currently grayed out. Why? You can't create a closed room from 2 walls. You can try, but it's not going to work. And well, you can't try because we don't let you. So that's where the software is kind of protecting here, saying, hey, we can't close this into a closed shape. It's only 2 lines. What can we do, though? We can connect the endpoints here of just these 2 walls. So really, that's just going to connect this corner for us, right? There it is. It's connected the corner. Please measure a point on the ceiling. No problem. Let's take this up, measure a point on the ceiling. And what do we have? Just the 2 walls that we want. Now, this isn't limited to just 2 walls. We could measure 3 out of 4 walls and just ignore the 4th. I mean, by that point, often it makes sense to just grab the 4th. But hey, if you only care about this section, That's all you need. If we're measuring this for new cabinets, what might we do next? And I'll do this, just very, very, very basically, but we might want to ascribe at a particular level here or something like this, and start adding some detail onto this as we go along here. Again, what you measure on these cases is entirely up to you. I'm just doing this in a 3D folder to show you what this might look like, and it's going to be a little weird if I try to connect that together, but we'll see if it lets us anyways. So add as much detail, approach your measurement normally, create the folders, or use these folders if you like. I mean, this, if you think of it, is just a shortcut to create a couple of these planes, and it's kind of exactly what it did. Now, again, it's built these to 1 point on the floor, 1 point on the ceiling. If we're looking at this, let's choose wall 1 here. We're putting a panel on this that goes right down to that floor. What do we need to do to begin? Well, actually, essentially, we need to delete this single line here. That is not a scribed line. It's just based off a single point. We might take some measurements on the floor here, as we would normally, just using this folder for us. So let's start adding some detail into this, where this panel is going to meet the floor, and build out from there. Start to see that coming up on the bottom of the page. Awesome. So that's our at its absolute most basic, that's our room with a closed box, or a closed room, I should say, as well as an open room. Let's build out from this a little bit more, because we mentioned a second ago, okay, we're looking at this. Let's flip over to top view, and right away we can see, well, this is not going to be perfect 90 degrees. And let me show you this a slightly different way. And this is part of where the software really starts to give you some help on this too. Let's say on room 1, I want to see how square this is. We aligned before we started our measurement, so I want to see how square this is all going to be. Let's ask AutoDim to show us some of this. So instead of just coming over here to my 2D layout, and of course I could do this, well, we could use AutoDim to throw some of these dimensions on here. And again, right away we're going to see those corners not going to be 90s. We have the set to show us 2 decimal points in here, and these measurements, not surprisingly, will be different top and bottom because of that. Now, there's ways that we can adjust the measurements. For architectural drawings, you might want to see this to the nearest inch. You might want to see 10 feet and 8 inches. 8.5, not interested. 8 inches. For an architect, for fire egress. For those of you that are doing floor plans for interior design planning, I don't think most interior designers want to see the nearest 16th. Of course, we can measure it, but they want to see a rough measurement. They want to see a measurement that's going to be easier for them to work out. How would we do that? Let's say we want to measure this room. We want to make it a little simpler to read and simpler to understand. And even though it's not square, we want to render it as being perfectly square. Now, some of these things can be kind of preset. You can use a template that's got some of these dimension styles that we'll play around with in just a second here. But let me show you what this might look like. We're going to come back to our home folder. We're going to measure the same room. We're going to call this B3 now. I'm going to choose a 3D folder for this, and let's work in this 3D folder. So we're going to call the command here, measure floor plan, but what we're going to do different is we're going to use this function in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen called draw orthogonal. This button, you might have noticed for those of you in version 3.3 and later, has been added to the screen of the Flexijet here. So when I choose measure floor plan, that same button where my cursor's hovering over in the bottom right-hand side, it's a little hard to see, but that same button is available on the screen of the Flexijet here. And I'm going to press it right away because it pops up with a message here on the screen of the Flexijet and on the screen of the computer, warning you about what's going on. And the reason for this is orthogonal mode. If you don't expect what it's doing, it's going to surprise you. Let's go through this together and we'll kind of show you the changes. So orthogonal's mode is switched on. From now on, elements will only be drawn parallel to the axes. What does that mean? We only get lines that are perfectly straight. You can't even draw 45. This isn't polar tracking. Orthogonal is even more strict than that. So we are going to force this floor plan to be perfectly square, even though it's not. I'm going to measure my point on the floor. And you might hear, I don't know if that comes through there, but we get this really funny sound. It makes this really video gamey sound as we go through this. And if you hear it, right away, you'll know something's different. This is not a normal sound. We've come to the end of these walls, and you might notice already, these walls look pretty square for us. Let's connect our endpoints with the closed element there. We've got to grab our point on the ceiling here, take our measurement, and makes that sound again and fills this into a complete box. What's the difference here? We come to our 2D layout or our floor folder or our ceiling folder, whichever you choose, throw some auto dimensions on there. Every one of these corners is perfectly 90 degrees. These measurements here are perfectly the same. Now, I promised you that we'd be able to, simplify these measurements a bit. The architect doesn't care if it's 230 and 3/16. Just show them as 230. That's close enough for what they're doing. Let everyone else worry about the problems down the road, right? And if that's what they want, that's what we can give them. This is just a matter of changing your dimension styles, and we'll do this just briefly here and kind of explore this a little bit. And wouldn't you know, there's a dimension style here called architectural, and we're going to change the precision of this. This is number of decimal points. After that, we're going to say 0 decimal points. I want 0 decimals. I don't want any fractions here. Show me 19 feet 2 inches, and here we got 20 feet 4 inches. We're in shape there. So you've got the control to control this, display this how you want, and make these, in this case, make what was not a square room. This is truly a less accurate measurement, you could argue. I don't know if that's the right way to say that. And corrected is also not the right word. It's an adjusted measurement. It's not wrong because we haven't made any mistakes. We chose to make this decision. We chose to draw this perfectly square on the page here. And hey, just for example, because we've done these all in the same project so far, which normally you probably wouldn't have 3 versions of the same room. You might, depending on the scope of your project. But if we were to compare this, that's where we'll see, hey, this is what we had measured before. We can see the different squareness. The orthogonal mode force these things to be perfectly square as we go through here, and that's what we're looking at. One thing to add to this going along is I want to show you how auto dimension works with these room layouts. So if you're just exploring this, auto dimension is a tool that has some definite uses for us. This is where it really shines. So things like this room layout. Well, let's do it. Let's just press the button here for auto dimension. I'm on the 3D folder. Watch what happens when I press it. It goes through each folder, it dimensions it, and it shows me all of this. Each one of these is nicely laid out. We're going to go through in a second and show you a slightly bigger project. It has some more details, and you'll see where auto dimension can show us and can be adjusted to show us in these floor plans things really efficiently. Have a lot of control over what we want that to look like as we go through. We're in one room so far. We've measured it a couple different ways. This is great. Let me show you something slightly different here. So far, we've only used the measure floor plan command. You're probably going, okay, well, what if I can't see everything from one position? Or what if there is a pony wall? Hey, let's start with that. What if there is a pony wall that we need to deal with here? Let's actually mock up a little bit of a pony wall here. And we'll treat it as if this end of the cabinet here, which I think you'll be able to see on screen, is a pony wall. Bear with me. Imagine that this wall goes straight down to the ground and it's open up on the other side. How might we approach this? How might we get this on the page? Well, yeah, we have the tools. We can manually put this in. But if we're looking to build into our project here and just add this in, we can actually do that. We're going to come to our 2D layout folder. Actually, I'm going to remove my auto dimensions for now. We might add these on later on as we go through. Come into my 2D layout folder. We're still in orthogonal mode. The scope and scale of what we're doing right now, we're still telling it we want this to be perfectly squared on the page. We don't want to see the angles. We want to see this as if it was perfectly drawn in an architect's head. And again, that's not the right way to do this. That's one way to do this. And for this example, we're going to use that. You'll see we'll switch gears in a second, do some other things. Well, what do we do now? We're looking at a 2D floor plan. We're looking at this thing up in the air here. Well, let's use our multiple lines command and use it and just measure this a little bit. So you'll hear, well, you won't. I'll hear these sounds here where this is going to make some funny sounds. I'm just measuring this kind of like I would anything, doing it into the 2D layout floor plan because I kind of want to see what this will look like from the top. Just like standard measuring with countertops and things, I need my T targets to grab the back side of this. Let's see if our remote control is conveniently available for us here as well. Might just have to let the software know that we want to see that or make sure focus is over here. And fire this back up there. Awesome. And we'll come through here. We'll grab a couple more of these. And you'll notice this is, again, drawn perfectly square to those axes because orthogonal mode is on here. It's showing right on the screen here. So no surprises with that. I'll use my auto fillet command to connect those corners together. For this next part to work, we have to go just a little bit further with this. We actually want these to come and meet this back wall. few different ways we can do this. We're going to use for this, the stretch command. We'll set our border and we'll just extend these through. So what have we done so far? We've measured our pony wall here, our 3 kind of additional walls inside this room, a dividing wall, whatever you want to think of this as. But it's just 3 lines on the floor. We got to do something a little bit more with this. Let's click over here to the measurement tab. Wouldn't you know it, we're on a 2D folder, and like I was mentioning before, the measure floor plan is not available for us. This is a measurement command, measure floor plan. Room from layout is an editing command, and wouldn't you know it, it is available for us. I'm going to press this button. Let's see what happens. What's it going to ask us for here? So first thing, wall 5, first point. How does it know where to start on this? How does it know? Well, it just looks here in the folder and says we've already got wall 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's add a wall 5. So we're going to do this, and remember, for these functions, they work clockwise. So if I'm, thinking about going around this room, I would actually start kind of on the outside of this, the side that's closest to me here. That's going to be my wall 5, and work my way around this. So we're going to come through here and click my first point. Wall 5, second point. So I'm going to bring this right out here to the corner. Now, in this case, you'll see it's why the corners become important for us and why we pre-connected those together. So wall 5, second point here. Oh, something's going on here. It's actually showing us where that's coming to. Wall 6, second point. Well, wait a second. It didn't ask me wall 6, first point. Because we connected our corners through, wall 6's first point is going to be the same as wall 5's second point. So we just need to click on the corners. Once we've established the first wall, we're great. We can follow this through. It's tracing through. It's showing us what's going on here. And when we're ready, we're going to press escape. And it says, please measure a point on the ceiling. Well, I think we're all seeing the same thing here. This doesn't go up to the ceiling, and I really want to show it coming up to the height that it is here. So let's do that. Let's try and see this. Let's measure a point on the top of this and see what happens. Wouldn't you know it, it drew it up to that height. It drew my 1, 2, 3 walls, which are wall 5, 6, and 7. It drew these on the page here, each individually, and they have this particular height coming through here. Now, some of you might be looking at this going, hey, there's other ways you can measure this. You're absolutely right. We could have measured that as a rectangle on the floor. We could have assigned a height to it. We could have done all kinds of things with this. We could have manually created those planes. We could have measured the front of it and given it a depth. So all of those are equally correct. Our goal with this was to show you how you could use this tool. And a great example of this is partition walls or pony walls like this, where we can do this. Now, we can also go a little bit further with this tool where, let's say we have a room where we can't quite get everything on the page. Well, we can go right from the start with this tool as well. And if we don't run out of time, we'll show you that as we come around here. So great, we've gone through a couple of these different room measurements. And again, as much or as little detail as you want to add on this, we'll kind of poke around at that in this webinar as part of our introduction to some of these functions and maybe throw a door or something on as we go through here. Actually, let's do that now. What do you think, Jose? Before we reposition, let's put a door on here because that might kind of give us some context. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So far, we're very basically looking at this room. What we're going to do is actually swing this around and see what this looks like to add a doorway onto here. And so we'll swing around and see the other side of this this grand space where we work, and that door is already open. Let's actually close that for starting, and we'll see that this is going to add a little bit of detail as we come through here. Now, positioning of the Flexijet is something we haven't talked about too much yet in this measurement. Position of the Flexijet, from where it is maybe not excellent, but we're going to do this in a particular way. I want to actually show you this by focusing on the doorway and not on the Flexijet itself. Might be best for me to move the Flexijet or reposition as we do this. I didn't think about that before we move the camera, but bear with us as we find our way through this. So we've now resumed our location. We're ready to put this door in. How do we know which one of these folders to put it in? Well, I could choose manually here. I can grab the different folders here. We created them all. So I should be able to figure out which wall 1 and wall 2 is, but we're actually going to make that a little easier. I'm going to use a function here called find folder. And the way that we found this folder is I right-clicked on here and I chose find folder. You can also grab this function on, it's right here on the second row of the Flexijet screen, right next to distance point to plane is find folder. And the way that this works is we choose find folder. It says, please measure a point on the real plane, but it's saying on the plane itself, measure a point, and it chooses the folder automatically. So it selected that folder from the side. Now, we're going to use this function. It's a measurement function, so it's going to be on the measurement ribbon here, and this is going to be under here under the room elements. And we have this option for measure a door. A few different options here. Does the door swing in? Does the door swing out? And here we get to choose, is it a relevant door or an irrelevant door? So in-swing door here or out-swing door? Well, this is an in-swing door. It's swinging into the room here. Let's go ahead and choose this one. We're just going to follow the prompts here. Measure first point on the door close to the hinges. We're establishing the swing of the door. Does it swing this way? Does it swing that way? So the location of this point, absolutely not critical. Just follow the prompts here and give these a go. Measure first point on the door close to hinges. Measured points on the circumference of the door here. Now, I'm going to put the remote down, and for the sake of this demonstration, we're going to do this fairly roughly here. I'm going to measure a minimum of 3 points on the left, top, and right. Why don't I care about the bottom? This function's automatically going to drop down to the level of the floor here. If you're thinking this is a function to measure a door and replace it, no. This is a room measurement, a floor plan function. You'll see it does a great job putting this on the page, but it assumes certain things. It assumes the floor is always going to match the floor of the room. In reality, the door could have a step up and things like that. Now remember, we can always measure all of those things manually. We have all the tools here to create planes and define these and go through this. But just to say that right at the start here, this is not designed to measure this door perfectly and scribe it in. This is designed to accurately give us an architectural representation of this. Back to our regular scheduled programming here. We first measured a point on the hinge there. Now we're measuring points on the door itself close to the perimeter. You might be looking at this going, hey, that's not that accurate. You'd be better to get over there with remote control on a target because you're measuring the edge of the door itself. You would be 100% correct. For the sake of this example, we're going with the easy way here. Following the prompts here, it says when we get to, once we're happy with this, and a reminder, we need a minimum of 3 points, one on the left, one on the top, one on the right. Once we get as many as we want, I'm going to take a double measurement or press escape, and it's going to let me know that it's done that. It's going to prompt me for a depth point. What's a depth point? Well, I actually want to know approximately how deep this door is. And I'm going to do that by opening the door, measuring on the jamb right behind there. So I'm already aimed there. I happen to use my remote control to grab that. It gives us the option for additional depth points. I'm pretty happy with that single one, so we'll press escape once or cancel on the Flexijet. Measure points on the door casing. So same thing here again. The most accurate would be to get over there with the target and measure these points. I'm going to just aim the laser near the edge. And for those of you that are used to measuring for glass and countertops, you're probably cringing a little bit, but I assure you, for architectural measurements, it's a different ballgame. The accuracy that we could choose or that the architect may choose or may be requiring for this may be met by what we're doing here. The output of your project will determine these things. Once I'm happy with this, I'll either press cancel or take a double measurement there, prompting me for a depth point on the casing. How deep is this casing? How far does this come forwards off the wall? So we've got as many depth points as we want. It's actually only going to take the maximum. So there's no real advantage to taking a whole bunch of these. And now the doorway itself, this is actually the passage in the frame there where the door fits. Again, I need a minimum of 3 points on the one on the left, one on the top, and one on the right. To give myself that position, I can take more if I want, but it's only going to take the maximum in this case of these and draw the door around it. And there we go. We've got a door. Prompting us for a new door, just like our usual functions, polylines and multiple lines. It just restarts and runs in a cycle here. So we put that door on the page. Looks nice, right? Hey, we're looking at this 2D wall from the side. We've got a nice looking door here. It's showing us which direction the swing is, and it's showing us, roughly where the trim is, the difference between the door and the passageway, things like that. Where this function and these functions really start to shine is when we start to see them in 3D. So by adding the swing on here, we can actually see which direction that door opens up and what it looks like on the page. And this is the value of this function. If I look at this from the top, we're able to actually see where that sits. And we can see the depth of the door that we measured. We can see the trim sticking out here. We can see the swing of it all through here. And wouldn't you know, if we start to do things like add on some auto dimensions, it's actually going to really nicely dimension this. And if we choose this wall, I think it was wall 2 there, it's going to show us the opening, the doorway, show us, again, with the parameters we've set in the dimension settings, it's going to show us what those dimensions look like as we requested it. Base level introduction to some of these functions. Hey, you'll find that some of your doors don't work well with this function. Again, we're not limited by that. You can absolutely draw the stuff manually. These functions exist when possible to make some of these easier. Things like windows. Not all windows will be, perfectly measured by what we have here. Feel free to adjust and add onto these as you need and play around with them. There's all kinds of different functions inside here. There's different ways we can use these. All kinds of customizable elements that are a little simpler. They're just basically boxes or circles, but things that we can put on a wall and customize the label to color the depth of those. Our next big thing, okay, great, we've measured this. What would we like, so far we're on one room. Well, that's a great, we'll call this a room measurement. How do we go a step further and turn this into a floor plan? That's really the difference between a room measurement and a floor plan, isn't it? The one room versus multiple rooms. And by the way, this focus today has all been on really 3D floor plans, which you can squish down to a 2D floor plan, no problem. But if all you want is a 2D floor plan, even easier. We can simplify what we've done so far and make that even easier for you. But great, we're in this room. We've got the FlexiJet here. We started over there. We moved it over here. How do we get past here now? And this is where, some of these, some techniques become really helpful for us. This is the basic principle of what we're going to do. We need a minimum of 2 points to reposition. This is showing us how we can kind of build a backup point on this as well. And as we know, we want as much as spread as possible. If in an ideal world, we have our points on, opposite or opposing walls anyways, things like that. But if we're in this position here, we want to get through this doorway to the other room, what are we going to do? Hey, we got some other pictures. We'll come back to those in just a second here. What do we do to get through this doorway? Well, it's pretty straightforward. We start with, let's say 1 or 2 points around here. Remember, it's many points as we need, and we can always add more as backups. We know we've got some points established here. If I want to get through here, well, I'm not going to be able to see the point that I have on this wall behind us here, but the one that I have further down there is going to be possible for me. Now, let me show you that another way. Let's look at this inside here. We'll flip this to top view, and let's see where we have location points so far. We've got a location point here. We've got a location point right here. Our FlexiJet is currently located right here, and we want to take the FlexiJet through this wall. Well, it's going to be pretty difficult for us to, snap onto this location point. That's a pretty tight angle, and especially if we want to start moving down here, it's going to be a little bit trickier for us. So, adding more location points before we do this could be our solution. We could actually open the door and do this. Now, you might not be able to see all this at once. We'll maybe bring up that FlexiJet live stream and see if this is going to make our life a little bit easier, so you can kind of see what's going on here. I think that's going to be our best bet, but just want to show you the very basic principle. What we'll do is we'll set a location point, and then we'll actually work backwards for this because we prepped a couple things ahead of time. We'll show you what that looks like. So FlexiJet live stream, let's get that powered up here. And for those of you on version 3.3.4.0 and later, we have this new option under settings here where this window now stays top of everything we're doing. Let's make it a little bit smaller here and just move it off to the side, but this is going to let you follow along. As we use the FlexiJet, I'm going to press the button here for define location. And you can also do this on the screen of the computer if you prefer. You can go to 3D locations and click on define button, but I'm going to press it on the screen of the FlexiJet and preset conveniently a sticker and down the hallway here. And let's see how far I can get away before the headset stops working. So let's see if that's going to keep working for us there. Jose, are you seeing this on the live stream?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So we're seeing location. You. Perfect. And this is the basic principle. We can get 1 point here, and hey, we could actually go a little bit further with this. You're seeing this point here. Through that doorway, maybe we could get another point down here. I'm not sure if you see me on the live stream there, but as far away, we could take the full spread of what we're able to get here and do this. And now that we've got that point in here and saved, we can see that that's going to be an option for us. If we were to move our FlexiJet down here to this position, we can measure this point back here. We can measure this point. We can keep building and adding to this measurement as we go through, which is a lot of fun. Let's show you what that looks like going a little bit further and kind of working back. So in this measurement that we've got here, and let me flip back over here. We're calling it a house measurement. We got some different office rooms and stuff like that. This is pretty well the opposite of what we were just looking at. FlexiJet, that's not actually where it is because we haven't resumed our location yet, but we've got a bunch of other rooms. And what we don't have here is the room that we're in currently. So we're going to do the opposite. Imagine, instead of us moving out to the hallway, we're actually going to move ourselves into here, and maybe we'll move this back just to let you see a little bit more all at once. Maybe we can see a little bit more of the room as we go here. So bear with us. We're working the opposite direction now, where let's say we started out the other way. We've got this coming in here. Well, how are we going to do this? This case, we did it the opposite. FlexiJet was out in the other room, and that other room is actually right about here. Through this doorway is right about here. And wouldn't you know it, if we come through here, I think we'll see that this picture of this measurement point is going to match that picture that we have in our camera view right now. We're working backwards from that point there. And in the room that we are currently, we also have a couple of these points set there. We got some FlexiJet equipment and stuff on the side there, maybe just before we cleaned up for this webinar. So we got some of these points here. We need a minimum of 2 to do this, and we've got them all set there. So let's go for it. We're going to take the FlexiJet, we're going to put it to wherever we choose. Let's say we're going to use it somewhere around here. And we switched over to a different file. We're going to get back into this here, and let's turn off this live stream for a second, because it's going to be as we do the spin, it's going to be a little bit distracting probably. So resume location. I'm going to make sure I'm happy with this. I can see the first point. I can see the second point that I want. Obviously important that we can see the measurement points we're going to use to resume our location. We're going to use this relocation over 2 points function. Reminder to everybody that relocation over 2 points is always preferred. The exceptions where you can't use the relocation over 2 points are things like measuring on a boat. We can't use auto level. But if we can use auto level, as a rule, you should be using relocation over 2 points. It's more accurate and more efficient than relocation over 3 points. And if you want to talk about the technical reasons why, we can do that with you as well. Now let's turn that live stream on, and let's leave it off. You'll just see me outside of the camera here for a second. I guess you won't really see what's going on. Hey, Jose. But we'll take this point over here. And you're still seeing the screen though, right?
Yeah, we're seeing the screen.
Perfect. So we'll take 1 point. We'll spin around here in just a second and take the second point. And we'll take that second point over here. And we'll come through like this. And you'll see in just a second as we build this up that the FlexiJet's going to let us know if and when we've resumed our location successfully. It's going to give us that readout on the screen as usual. Perfect. Make sure that we stay out of the way of the laser as it's measuring that point. Awesome. Repositioning was successful. Awesome. Let's see where the FlexiJet is on the screen here. Let's see, we have got our FlexiJet position. Look at that. It's right there. It measured that point just like we said it would. And we now have a few different rooms here. On the lower level, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rooms so far. Let's go ahead and add another room in here. We'll call this shop here or something like that. And in this shop, we can use that function just like we did a second ago and start to add some of these details. So just by following these same steps over and over, that's how we can work our way through an entire building. And this is grab as much or as little details we want. Again, we stack these different floors and see what these look like, and go from there. We're getting low on time, and there's one more thing I wanted to cover, and that was the how we could use a room from layout in a situation where we can't see all the walls at once. So there we are, we've got this room, and wouldn't you know it, this room looks like just this room that we've measured 3 or 4 other times in the course of this webinar. What's the difference in this case? The difference is it's in the context of this entire project. And we've just added one more room to the floor plan. Where we didn't have a room a second ago, we now do have a room. Each one of these is still broken down into the individual parts, the individual folders as we go through this. But we're just continuing to add one step at a time. And, the thickness of these walls, for example, starts to become apparent. If we wanted to, we could grab and measure the thickness of this wall, from here to here, because that's built in. That's built into this measurement, that it's a 2x6 wall or whatever is going on there. And, again, the scope and scale of what you want to get out this measurement will determine what we do. And there's all kinds of ways we can work with these things. And get this ready to print out to an architect, export it as a 3D DXF, export it as an IFC or whatever this looks like for you, and dimension each one of these folders individually and let it work all its way through this. And you'll see in some other parts of this measurement, we've added some more detail. It's doing the auto dimension for us and throwing these on as we go. Add baseboard, add details, add whatever we want on the walls. And let's go. That's a lot of details in that one. If we look at wall 1 in our first one here, and this is again where that auto dimension is really showing us a nice, nicely dimensioned version of this detail that we've captured. We captured a doorway, we've captured a window, we've got some other details, a heater on this as well here. So reach out to us if you have any questions on this on the support team. We do have a couple resources here. These pictures we saved are part of our shared are part of our FlexiCAD basic training manual, which in contrast to the Flexijet Stone manual, focuses more on these types of applications. It's more of a training manual. It's not a reference manual. It shows you kind of a broad overview of some of these things, how we might move through some different rooms and work on these different things together. Awesome. Maybe we'll leave that the room from layout and drawing a room from scratch. And we'll leave that as a topic for you to explore on your own there, using the online manual or reaching out to us. But just as a basic principle, we can't get all this from one position. No problem. Just like we did, we added that pony wall here. We could actually measure the whole thing in the 2D and generate the 3D afterwards. So we can use the information that we capture. We don't have to run it all in one sequence. We can capture it in parts. Maybe move to another position, or hey, you might have a hallway that's long and winding and prefer to put that together afterwards. Not a problem with the room from layout function. Do it a wall at a time, even if you choose. So the flexibility is all yours on that. You can put it together in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, guys, just take your Flexijet and practice it with it. I mean, you have it there. Take it, use all the functions that you see there. If there's one that you don't know how to use it, you can always check on the online manual. If it's not there, or if it's not clearly explain it, you can call us, reach out to us, and we'll help you.
Awesome. And yeah, things like those door functions, give them a try. Sometimes you got to think a little bit. Hey, what is it asking me? But once you understand what it's asking, they can be some pretty powerful functions. You can, if you understand how these work, whatever you do for a measurement, whether it's countertops, millwork, glass, steel, boats, whatever you guys are doing with your FlexiJets, you might have situations where you can incorporate these or at least have them in your tool bag for when you need them.
Exactly.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, guys. Bye.